Hello, welcome to our little shop. Well, today we get another treat. I have seen some pretty nutty DIY failures. But this one, man, the others aren't squirrel poop compared to this. Someone, man, this is going to be a tough one to explain. Someone decided for some reason it was necessary to use an extension on a power drill with a Phillips head driver. You see where they've chewed up the pickguard here. They've been into the pickup. But man, what they have done to this truss rod nut, it's a crime. You probably can't see it, but I'll show it to you in a few. What we have going on here is they've tightened that up with a drill driver or something. Probably as tight as I could get it. Stripped out the end of the truss rod nut and chewed up the heel of the neck a little bit. And it was all to accomplish getting the neck so straight, it's over straight, it actually has a back bow in it. So, we're going to tear this down and see what we've got. Customer brought it in to have a pickup replaced, which he has here. His choice of a new pickguard, which, oh well, anyway, so, and a setup. But this is what we've run into. He mentioned it after he came in the door with it, that it had a truss rod issue. So we're going to tear this down and see what it looks like. Don't know what we're going to find here. Now that we have the strings off of it here, maybe you can actually see this a little better before we get the neck off. This ain't pretty. Okay, there you go. There's a little bit better look of the damage we've got going on here. They've probably driven this up in so far that they may have run out of threads, because it doesn't seat flush at the rear like it should. But man, how stupid do you have to be? Anyway, carry on. Alright, well, we'll give you another quick look here at the damage of the end of the heel. Since I've got the truss rod nut out. And look at this. I mean, this thing's all mushroomed out, mangled. Anyway, I don't think you can really see how bad it is. Hang on. There you go. Take a look at that. Here's some DIY work at your finest now. Of course, we'll have to replace the nut here. It's at least it's American thread 1032 standard fender truss rod nut. We're going to have to do some repair work on the neck first. Get that all together. We're probably going to have to make a spacer to drop back in here where these driven the rod or the nut so far up in for the seat, so it seats flush like it's supposed to. But there we go. So the plan here is I've already sealed the area with super glue. I've wrapped the original truss rod nut with a couple wraps of electrical tape because super glue does not like to stick to it. and I've also waxed up the tape just to make sure. So what we're going to do is start filling in this void with maple sanding dust and super glue. It's too small and too weird shape to try to cut a plug to fit it, and that'd probably just, look a whole lot worse anyway. So we're going to fill this in and see how it works out. Here is a quick look at our rough fill. We're going to unscrew this truss rod nut back out of here and see what we've got. Well, that released rather well. We've got a nice clean hole here on the inside. So let's trim up some of the outside, see how much touch-up work we have to do. We're going to file down the outside here and try to do as little sanding as humanly possible. Okay, well, let's get you caught up here. We have this done. It's not real pretty, but it filled in, it's level. There's not a big gaping hole there. We have our new truss rod nut installed and lubed. I actually had to make a couple spacers to go behind it because apparently when they had forced this nut up in there so much, they had driven the stop for the truss rod nut up farther. So I actually had to put about a 1/4 inch thick spacer in it. But I've got it all functioning. Truss rod works again. Nuts flush at the end of the neck. I say it's not pretty, it's not perfect, but here's the thing. Whole thing so far is like an hour. So there is a virtue into the time factor. So let's move on to the rest of it. I've actually found in the process of this that he has, of course I knew he had a little fret wear up here, but I also found he's got a couple high frets here. So I'm going to clean that up before I even put the neck back on. And that'll probably take care of a little bit of his fret divoting here. Probably can't see the fret wear. Let's see if we can get some light on it. There you go. Basically worn up to like the first 3 frets a little bit. So carry on. I've quickly cleaned up his fret problems here and given the frets a quick buff. I'm also going to clean up and countersig these neck mounting screw holes. See the little lip there sticking up? What happens is that keeps the neck from seating flat on the body. Actually, the neck is setting up on all these little mounds right around each screw, so it'll not seat down tight that way. Actually, I've been able to use the glare from the light above there. First time it's not really caused a problem. It's been a plus. Alright, so I'm going to clean those up and carry on. There. See, I've countersunk the holes. Our little mounds are all gone. That typically happens a lot. Your screw just pulls fibers up. So this is something all bolt-on neck guitars need to have addressed to some degree, whether people think so or not. Anyway, we have the neck back on. So let's get into changing his pickup they wanted to change and his pick guard. And he'd commented about the mismatched switches. He said both the switches were supposed to be white, so I just kind of let that slide by, and I'm going to surprise him. Well, imagine this. I open it up to start working on electronics, and I find more DIY buffoonery. Who'd have thought? You know, I'm going to say this right now. This screams, I ain't gonna pay nobody to work on my guitar. I can fix it myself. I hear it all the time. And then usually what happens is I cobble something up like this. And then, as in this case, it was sold to some unsuspecting person in a dark fast food parking lot some night. Yes, that's exactly how this guy got this guitar. That's why he didn't see the damage on the truss rod, nut at the neck, and all that. You can also see up here where they chewed up here around the nut, apparently when they had the pick guard off trying to work on it. So we're going to do some more wiring work here and see if we can get this finished up. Well, here's something else I found, but I can't blame this one on the DIY guy. Fender. Shame, shame, shame. How many times have I mentioned this on my channel? Here we have another import fender with shielding paint in the cavities. And yes, I've already checked. It is conductive. It is actually shielding paint, not just pretty gray paint. You can usually tell by the way it scuffs off like this. Over here, the little shiny spots. Anyway, if you don't connect this to ground, it's basically just gray paint. It's not connected anywhere. The control cavity shielding paint down here isn't connected to ground. This isn't connected to ground. They're not connected together. So again, they just painted cavities pretty much for nothing. However, if electronics do get into it, it'll short out. So we're going to ground that and fix it too. I'll probably put a little shielding tape on the back of his pick guard. Well, first things first, I've disconnected the leads here going to the pick guard switches, so I can do it separately and change pick guards and change pickups and rewire and all that. But what I'm going to have to do first thing is his output jack has come loose and spun around and has almost pulled the hot lead loose. So we're going to go back to our nuts and bolts factory here and actually make that solid so it won't spin. We actually have a loose tone pot also. Then we're going to move on to connecting the shielding. And if you look what I'm using here, I've got these, that's why I keep these 1/2 inch number 4 brass screws handy. I keep a package of them just to fix these shielding problems like this. You can see where I've cleaned and wire brushed the top so I can solder it. That's why I use brass, so I can solder to it. So I'm going to put those in a couple of strategic places here in these cavities to connect to the paint. Solder ground leads to them, and then now ground that paint. Then that part of the guitar will be shielded. Like I said, we're going to clean up the electronics here, then we're going to move on to rewiring the pick guard. So as I was getting ready to swap stuff here, I noticed something and I had to point out. Check out the shield moving around here. And all this ground stuff here. Love DIYs. As I was pulling one of the switches here, I found something interesting. We have been using a wood screw to hold the switch in instead of one of the bolts. Thankfully, they didn't mangle up the threads, so I'm able to put a bolt back in it. Like I said, DIY. Alright, well, we've got our pick guard swapped. We've got our pickup also installed, and we've rewired the guitar, cleaned up the wiring on it, and we have a new switch back here. Shh, don't tell him, okay? Well, we've got it back together. I've been roughing in the setup and winding this job down. But I've run into something else back here. See if you can see this. Check out the head on this bridge intonation adjustment screw. This guy, man, he's reamed it out just about the same way he did the truss rod nut. It's like a one-man demolition team. So I'm going to try to get this screw out of here. Hopefully I can find another metric one here in the shop to replace it with. I'm so close to being done. All I have to do at this point is take the cover off the pick guard, you know, the clear cover, oil the fingerboard, restring it, and everything is done except for this. So away we go. Well, there it is. Gives you a better look at it. Luckily I have an app for this, and it worked out this time. I have an old screwdriver that you can see that I changed the taper on the end of it to work and stripped out screws. It just did grab this one. This is one of my favorite old tools. I had to, you know, dig it out of my toolbox. Anyway, hopefully we can find a screw for this. So there we are. We're all back together. I actually managed to find a Goto bridge saddle screw that would fit. It's just a little bit short, but actually that's kind of nice. It doesn't stick up as much. So we put his DiMarzio Super Distortion pickup in. We put on his mother of green jello pickguard. Wouldn't have been my choice, but okay. Yeah, it's his guitar. He likes it, so he bought it. We fixed his truss rod and the neck. We did a little quick fret leveling. Set the whole guitar back up, wired it, put him a new switch in back here for his rear pickup. Balanced the tremolo up. It will probably work a little bit better tomorrow. I may have to retweak it after the spring tension settles, because it's been in one position. It was far off from this for a long time. Okay, there you go. Front pickup, rear pickup, both pickups, out of phase. And a tremolo that works. These old Mustang tremolos, man, I'm really versed with the old original ones. The import reissue ones here are a little bit different, but man, the old ones were really cool. I grew up with one of those and was really disappointed when I upgraded to a Strat. So, anyway, there you go. One more guitar done. That was a bit of a challenge here and there. Another DUI disaster. So, anyway, till next time, play nice,